And here we go. Welcome to the Gud Performance Podcast. Otto Zaccardo, joined with Troy Shallow and Brandon Jetter. Today is going to be a shorter podcast. We're going to go through some questions that our viewers have sent in to Coach Troy, see what conversations come up, and that's about it. Addie told me I should do more voices. They thought that was a pre-recorded AI intro. So,
like different voices?
Yeah, if you just listen to it to like a radio, like if you're just on Spotify listening, he was like, oh, I thought you had someone else do that intro.
That's how good your radio voice is.
It's crazy. I was just goofing around.
That's good.
I'll start practicing.
Yeah, I thought the field session was good today. We had 30 guys there.
Wow.
Long, extensive warm-up plyometrics, and then into some throws with med balls, marches, band-resistant marches, sled push, and 10-yard excel contrast, and then just some competition stuff. But
Very good.
Your standard acceleration day today. It was good.
Yeah, we got all the guys returning to run coming off of injury that got to run. Some very out of shape.
Yes. Extremely.
But they needed it.
So we're just going to get right into questions, I think. Sure.
Yeah.
Good 40, 5'10", broad jump for a
So we're
upcoming
getting right into
senior and high
questions?
school linebacker.
I think he's frozen.
Yeah, great. While we wait for Coach Troy to reconnect here, weather's finally getting nice here in the Northeast, which is nice. Brandon over here is spoiled year-round with
It's
beautiful
actually bad today. It's like dark and gloomy and raining.
Yeah, but it's probably still 50 degrees.
It
Coach,
is,
you're
yeah.
back.
It told me trying to connect, and it was not. Did anyone hear my question?
We didn't hear anything. We heard you chuckle as you're about to read the question, and then you cut out. So What is the first question?
The first question we have here is good 40, 5'10", and broad jump for an upcoming senior linebacker in high school.
Senior linebacker in high school? Well, if we're going to think that they weigh about 200 pounds, maybe a little lighter, I guess you only really need to be 195. We'll call it 200, maybe, probably a little lighter. You should run 4.6, hand-timed high school 4.6. That's something that I feel like people don't really understand, is the different levels of the 40-yard dash and what they mean. Because your high school 40-yard dash and your mid-college 40-yard dash and then your NFL scout 40-yard dash and then your laser start and stop training 40-yard dash are all different, which is probably very frustrating from a training standpoint or a programming standpoint. But like your high school coach timing you, your 40-yard dash on the field is a lot different than a fully automatic 40-yard dash, is a lot different than a semi-automatic hand start, laser stop 40-yard dash. But for your intents and purposes, if you can find a place that's not your buddy on your iPhone starting and stopping, 4.6 is solid. If you're faster, great, but you should aim to be in the 4.6s for a hand time 40-yard dash. I would say 4.3, 4.2, 4.3, 4.3, hand time 5.10.5. Yeah. What are the others? 5.10.5 and 40-yard dash.
Broad jump. I would say if you're over 9 feet in high school for a broad jump, I would say is significant.
Yeah, that's good. Even high 8s, depending on who you are. But that's good enough that you're athletic enough to do whatever you want. You got to buy time, like Brandon said in our last podcast, and find the opportunities. But yeah, if you're in that realm, you're good. If you're not in that realm, practice, do those drills, get yourself in that realm, because the odds are if you're in high school as a junior or senior, you have not gotten a lot of reps doing 5.10.5s or doing broad jumps or doing 40-yard dashes, and you'll probably see a pretty big improvement if you just do that consistently for a little bit. The other thing on 5.10.5, if you're going somewhere and they're training you and teaching a 5.10.5 and they're letting you put your other hand down when you turn, leave.
And also if they're not having you put your hand down at all, like just touch with your foot. People do that.
Yeah.
Because actually in the CSCS manual, in the CSCS test, it tells you that the right way to do a 5.10.5 is to touch with the foot. So I think if people don't know anything and they just go by the book and they don't actually do anything, they're going to train you, be like, touch with your foot at the 5.10.5. Like, no, that's not it.
I've seen both. I've seen people just touch with their foot doing a 5-10-5, and then I've seen people touch with one hand and then put their other hand down, like two hands touching when they turn. Both, if you're listening, are wrong. The right way to do the 5-10-5, the right way, I guess the approved professional way, which you might as well start now, is one hand, the hand of the direction you're going to touches the line, and nothing else. Your other hand cannot touch. If you touch, then it doesn't count. That's it. So if you're getting trained in the 5-10-5 and they're not teaching that, then that's wrong. Unless you're going to some combine or something that allows you to use two hands, which would be different. So that goes into another point. It's really important to understand before you go to a combine or any type of test is find out ahead of time, even if they don't put it up publicly, from the coach or whoever's running the combine or track meet or event that you're going to for sports. Find out ahead of time how exactly those drills are done and what counts and what doesn't count, because not everything is the same. We'd like to think that everything is exactly the same, but it's not. So find that out ahead of time so you're not, caught off guard, because maybe you're training with one hand, but then you go to this combine, they allow two hands. Then you would have wanted to train with two hands, even though that's not technically the correct way. But yeah, and maybe someone from the CSCS manual is having you touch with a foot and you haven't practiced touching with your hand, and then you show up. Yeah, you have to touch with one hand or it doesn't count. Well, you're screwed because it took you 3 reps.
That's why I think that the CSCS and all that stuff is such bullshit, because that's what it's going to teach you. So if you have a coach who has no skin in the game and they're just going by the book and they're like, no, this is how you run a 5-10-5. The CSCS manual says so. Well, that's actually not how you fucking do it. You've clearly never run one or trained any, guys who are training for a combine at all, because that's just not how the drill is done. So I hate that shit.
Yeah. Maybe I could see how they might teach it with just a foot if it's just purely for an agility training exercise, right? But then they should probably name it something else just so it doesn't get confused.
Yeah. Thoughts on basketball runs during the off season? And I like playing basketball, like pickup basketball. From an athlete's perspective, loved it. Right, loved it. It's so fun. It's great. It's an easier way to get in shape than just doing conditioning or whatever, like playing basketball. I loved it, and I always did it when I was playing football and stuff. From a coach's perspective, hate it. And I understand why now all coaches hate it, is because there's so many rolled ankles.
He cut out, but what he was going to say was from a coach's perspective that he does not like it so much because very often we have people come in from playing basketball over the weekends and roll an ankle. That's what he was going to say. You cut out there, Coach, but I knew what you were about to say.
Yes, I was about to say from a coach's perspective, and I understand it because even in college they would get mad at us and be like, do not go play pickup basketball, and kids would go play anyways. But there's someone's going to roll an ankle, or even worse, break their foot or ankle or something, because that's just kind of how it goes. So that I can understand that from a coach's perspective. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't know.
I would think it's good, but I think the issue that we run into with a lot of go play this game or do this physical activity to condition is that you're dealing with athletes, and even if it's not their main sport, they're going to end up pushing too hard, getting too competitive, and not staying within the realm of intensity that you kind of need to for that. If you're going to play pickup basketball and you keep it lighthearted and just move around, great. But that rarely happens because you start getting competitive. You start playing one-on-ones. Maybe you're going 5v5 or 3v3 and you're playing to win the game. That's when the intensity ramps up, and that's when, there's a higher likelihood to get an injury because it's not a sport that you do that often. It's not something that you've been practicing But that's kind of just...
I have deeply held opinions on this topic. I played absurd amounts of pickup basketball in the off seasons, and even when I redshirted, I did. And it's easy to say that now. It's not something I would have admitted back then. I think this is a case of do as I say, not as I do. Same reasons you don't want someone doing it and busting an ankle. I think it's especially true for field sport athletes and sports with more cutting and lateral quickness. I think because you're a little bit more prone to tendon injuries when it comes to cutting laterally and things like that. But in general, it's not good for any athlete to overdo it. I did absurd amounts of it. I actually think it benefited me a lot. I think that it like built up my elasticity, and I honestly got a lot of like gen prep work from it. I do it in the summer. I mean, I'm talking like 10, 20 hours. Like I played absurd amounts of pickup basketball, and like my conditioning was excellent. And I was getting, last podcast you asked who would you talk to? I said Dennis Rodman. Like I played like Dennis Rodman. Like I was like I played like absurdly like violently. Like always jumping up for a rebound. So I'm hitting, 20 to 30 max effort jumps like a game. That said, I also learned the hard way. The summer going, and it's fun to admit this now, but the summer going when I transferred to Davis, I was playing pickup basketball with my friend, and I always, max effort jump every rebound. I finally come down on his foot. I just bust my ankle. I remember I immediately ripped my shoe off and just yelled like "fuck" as loud as possible, and like literally threw my shoe like across the court. And that entire summer, I was on crutches. And every week, sometimes, multiple times a week, my coach is calling me and he's like, "How's the summer conditioning going? How's the summer lifting going?" I'm like, "Oh, it's great, coach. I'm in the best shape of my life." Meanwhile, every day I'm rehabbing, and like, it was a good journey because, it goes back to you're saying, like, how do you stay in shape? How do you build around, an ankle injury like that? So I was like in good shape and I was lifting, but like, I was just lying my ass off like every time they called. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing all the workouts. Like I'm hurdling, I'm doing the sprint conditioning, everything. I feel great." And I'm literally like on crutches. So yeah, very much a case of do as I say, not as I do. I think it's just really hard for people to play it sub maximally. I mean, like even when I like first started to try and get into lifting when I was a freshman in high school, I remember, or summer into my freshman year of high school, my older brother was like, "Let's play pickup basketball to warm up," and we did it 3 times, and each time he just started like fist fighting me, and so I never learned how to lift from him. So it's really hard for anyone that's competitive, I think, to like play it sub maximally. So I don't want to like completely say don't do it, but I think you get the gist.
I think you can go play pickup basketball and just set a goal, not with "I'm gonna win, my team's gonna win," but all right, we're playing pickup. No one can get hurt. That's the goal. That is the goal.
Yeah.
Can you play pickup on the weekends and not hurt yourself or make your knees ache or bang shins with someone? Because it's not bad.
No,
but
it's good. Like it is good. It's good cardio. It's good extra jumping and sprinting or whatever. It is good, but it just always results in someone getting hurt or something happening. That's like kind of what always happens.
So
I think it's
pickup.
a little bit easier in like a controlled environment. Like maybe if you have like GPC guys, you can kind of set those guidelines. My problem was like very often, and I've kind of told Otto this, like very often I like would drive to the inner city and like show up with like a basketball and like nobody wants to pick me up for five. So I like would get kind of like fiery, you know what I mean? And I'd get too competitive. And that's like the opposite of a controlled environment. Cause now I'm like trying to, you know what I mean? Now I'm like trying to show off. Now I'm like trying to prove like, oh yeah, this white dude can hoop and he can jump. Like when it's in a controlled environment, like it's a little bit better. Like I mean, you've seen plenty of videos and maybe you did it in your career. There's plenty of videos of football teams themselves and like OTAs and stuff, doing it pretty lightheartedly. I think people always think of like the Cleveland Browns video where they're like Myles Garrett is like 360 dunking on like it's probably like a 9-10 hoop, but like still impressive. But when it's in a controlled environment, I think it's a little bit better. I think you can control those variables. It becomes a problem when you start going all out and you get too competitive.
Next one, red meat or chicken/turkey, like white meat, for better muscular growth, or does it not matter? On this one, I don't think it matters. It's really a preference. It really is. I like steak. I eat a lot of steak and a lot of ground beef. That's my preference. Like that's what I like. It makes me feel better. I had a conversation with Josh about this, and maybe it's just a fat guy thing, whereas like when we eat chicken, we don't feel full. Like it's not satisfying. Like steak is a lot more satisfying. That being said, there has been a bunch of studies and stuff that say, good, like actual good quality, like grass-fed steak has a lot more like micronutrients that are more beneficial to you than, say a chicken thigh or chicken breast or whatever. But it doesn't, I don't think it matters. It's really preference. I don't know.
Yeah, I had this conversation with I forget who it was. I think it was, I don't know, someone that with their diet and body recomp, do what works for you. Don't freak out. There's no one is going to notice when you show up to whatever season you're. No one's going to notice and say, that guy's been eating a lot of steak. You can just tell. Or that guy's been eating a lot of chicken. You can just like see it in his muscle fibers. No one's going to notice. The only one that's going to notice is you. So whatever is tolerable to you, and more importantly, whatever you can eat more of to get a higher like protein goal for the day, that's what you should do. Chicken's really easy. I think it's sometimes easier to hit, because you said you feel fuller from steak. Sometimes it's easier to hit protein goals from eating a lot of chicken because you can eat more of it. But I don't know, I eat whatever I feel like on that day. I don't really fish too. People can eat fish. That's good fats right there, as long as it's not like toxic metal crappy fish.
Farm raised is the bad shit.
I mean, you can get farm raised.
Try and get wild caught fish if you can.
I mean, I think there's almost, I don't know this. This is way outside of my realm of expertise with diet and nutrition, but I think people freak out a lot more on having grass-fed stuff and organic stuff than if they just ate, like, you can eat grass-fed steak, but then if you're living off of crap, all the other, and you're eating like 5 bowls of cereal, well, it doesn't, okay, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. So steak, chicken, turkey. I know some people that only have like turkey and chicken, and they're beasts. So it's really whatever you like to eat. Whatever you can get down and eat consistently and get you to your protein goals, great. Usually a little bit of everything is probably a good way to go about it, but don't freak out. It's not, stressing out about stuff like that, in my opinion, is not worth it. I think some people place too much weight on it because it's really brought up in social media because everybody and their brother gets into it. Not as much from strength coaches. I feel like everyone keeps it pretty simple, but because it's such, everybody eats food and everybody's trying to figure out the best diet for them and optimize what they're putting into their body, people freak out about it. And it's just keep it simple. Just like training, right, coach? Like, just keep it simple. Eat your steak, eat your chicken, eat your vegetables, eat your fruits. And if you can get grass-fed, locally sourced stuff, do it. If you can't, don't lose your mind about it. You're not going to die getting Purdue chicken from the grocery store. I mean, I think there might have been some, maybe there's some cases of salmonella or something occasionally, but you're not going to lose all your gains, bro, if you just get the steak at the grocery store. Like, it's perfectly fine and tasty. So just don't freak out about it and do what works for you. And make sure you get enough protein. It's really just getting enough protein. That's everyone's biggest problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything really to add. I agree. I guess with red meat, you might get a little bit more natural creatine from it than you would from fish or poultry. But in general, as long as you're hitting the protein numbers, that's fine. I prefer to try to get it, locally raised. But like you said, that's just a budget issue. So if you can't, it's not the end of the world. I think people sometimes overthink it.
Yeah, maybe it is a budget. There's a place right down the street from the gym that farm stand down the street, coach. I don't know if you've been there, but they have good stuff. It's not super.
Yeah, sometimes if you like find a little local thing, you can get lucky. Like in college, I used to just buy it from because we were like at ag school, so I just buy it from they had they called it like the meat lab. It wasn't actually lab grown, but it was like natural. But I would just buy it from them. Like students would just raise cows and then they would slaughter them.
Yeah, I don't know. The farm raised stuff, if you get ground beef from there and stuff, around here at least, typically like $10 a pound, but
yeah,
or like $9 a pound or something. But
if I go to similar.
If I go to BJ's, I get a big 3 to 4 pound pack for like $3.50, $4 a pound. So that's a huge difference.
From the organics, like the local stuff, or that's just
like if I just go to BJ's, they have like these it's not like grass-fed local farmer, like it's literally BJ's beef. But if I go there, it's like $3.50, $4 a pound. Or as if I go to like the local stuff, it's $9 or $10 a pound for beef, which is a significant difference. But I am in favor of supporting local farmers and eat locally if you can, So
if you can do that, maybe a little bit of both. But at the end of the day, just eat enough protein. Track it. If you track one thing in your diet, just track how many grams of protein you're eating. And also, if you feel shitty, that's a time to start looking at your diet and training volume. If you got your training taken care of and you just kind of feel like shit, that would be a good time to look into your diet. If you don't feel like shit and your training is going well, don't freak out about your diet. Don't look in the mirror and say, oh, I want to recomp. If you're an athlete training, train to perform and have results. Hit some bodybuilding on your, upper day, hit some arms, look good. But I think people care way too much about that stuff, and then they lose sight of the actual goals of training and eating.
I'm gonna leave.
Next question.
I'm gonna leave this to you two fast guys to answer this one. How do I drop my 40 by 0.2?
What an obscure number.
Yeah.
Is there a standard that he's? Yeah. Well, I guess we don't
Literally
know.
just a kid. I'll tell you what. He looks like a high school football player. Just how do I drop my 40 by 0.2? So how do you go from a 5.0 to a 4.8? How do you go from a 4.6 to a 4.4?
Oh, point.
0.2, 0.2.
Oh, okay, I was like 0.02 is like
0.02. It's like you can do that.
I was like, does he have like a walk-on standard he has to hit specifically? Yeah.
0.02 is get a fan, plug it in.
Yeah, 0.02 is like do one more rep.
Okay, I feel like as we get the simple questions, I'm going to end up making them so complicated that they don't need to be. But here's my most concise, simple answer, because I was just talking about this with another athlete about improving metrics. Pick, let's say, 3 things that will help you run faster, right? So if you find that you have really weak hamstrings or you really can't move weight fast, 3 things to improve in addition to running faster. Your first bet is just run more. That's your first bet. That's number 1. Everybody says that everywhere. Strength coaches, speed coaches, everybody. You just need to run fast to get fast. That's an oversimplified answer. The other way to do it is to track other things that can result in increased speed. So what are the components of speed? Okay, well, we know posterior chain strength is a big factor. We also know that hip flexor strength, big factor. We also know that explosiveness and moving fast is a big factor. So let's take those 3 things. Track and log how strong your hamstrings are. Full hamstring. It can be an RDL, a Nordic hamstring curl, a glute ham raise. If you really only have access to like an isolated hamstring curl, you can do that. I would be less inclined to use that as your main thing, but something that has that hinge motion that you're working your hamstrings and your glutes. Get that stronger. Progressive overload. Increase the strength. Increase the strength of your hip flexors. If you don't train hip flexors, I would recommend you start just banded hip flexor isos for extension, or you can tie a dumbbell to your foot with a band and just raise it, increase their overall strength. As you increase the strength, also make sure that you're stretching and taking care of soft tissue, because if you just get really, really strong and then you go out and sprint, that's when injuries can happen while you're adding new muscle mass and building new fibers. But increase a couple things that might make you stronger. Maybe the third thing would be increased stride length. There's about 20-something steps in a 40-yard dash. So if you can increase your stride length by an inch, what's an inch times 20? Oh, 20 inches. An inch is a lot. 20 inches is I can't even fathom 20 inches. Okay? So start with that, and that's you can get that, especially if you're in high school, if this is a high school kid asking, you can get that just by regular stretching and trying to increase your range of motion, because I promise you that no one does that. Even the guys we have train here, we got to hammer them to do their mobility work and do some lighter, low-intensity stuff on the side just to make your body work better. But that's a really simple, straightforward way to run faster. Now, in terms of 0.2 faster, there's a whole lot of factors in there, because we don't know. Every athlete is different. We don't know how much meat on the bone there is for that athlete. If it's someone that's completely untrained and you look at them and they have zero form, that's one place to start. They don't even know how to run. Okay, pretty high likelihood that we can get a 1/10 of a second here. If they haven't done strength training or any type of speed or conjugate method training, there's a pretty high likelihood you're going to get a lot. If it's someone like if I went to Brandon and asked him, hey, Brandon, I need you to program speed training for me and I need to run 0.2 faster in a 40-yard dash. Well, I don't think there's not
5-year journey.
Yeah, there's not 0.2. There's not 0.2 left. There's not 0.2 left there. That what am I going to run? The all-time fastest 40 of all time ever? No, probably not. There's a genetic, limiters and factors. But if you're in high school, 0.2 is realistic, and you should just regularly run 40s, track your times, and just go for a couple hundredths each week. It's not going to be linear. You might have a week where you take a step backward, but regularly run the drills, keep track of them, and just try and get a few hundredths faster each time you do it. That's kind of the best way to get better at anything. And Brandon, I apologize because I pretty much answered the question fully. But
yeah, I mean, I can add a little bit.
Yeah,
it's not gonna
please
sound.
do.
Yeah, it's not gonna sound radically different than Otto. Obviously, if it's like a more trained athlete, that would be like a 2.5 hour podcast on how you can make someone with a higher training age faster. That's a totally different topic. I'm gonna assume this is like a high school sophomore, junior.
It is.
I have like a really good anecdote of this. When I was in high school and I was a sophomore, we didn't have like proper strength and conditioning or anything, but we had like the weights class that you had to take as like a unit, and we had lasers. Somehow we had lasers. We didn't have like a proper coach or anything, but the school had lasers. I remember I went out in like a shitty pair of cleats, and I hadn't really run track at the time yet either, so I wasn't like super. I hadn't run the 100 period. I think I had done like 2 track meets as a freshman. I was coming off basketball, and I went and ran. They had us run a 40 in the class, and I ran a 482, like laser timed. I didn't do anything else. I just stayed in that like football weights class where they just did progressive overload for these kids that were super untrained. And I think I had like a 65-pound clean at the time, like no joke. I think my max was 65 pounds. My bench was 65 pounds, and my squat was like 135. We didn't do any sprint training because they didn't know what that was. I got my clean up to 185. I got my bench up to 185. I got my squat up to like, I don't know, maybe 275 or something. And I got my 40 down to like a 462. Obviously, like there's different genetic elements. I ended up like realizing, oh, I'm naturally fast. So like maybe it takes a little bit less for me to have made that jump, but literally just getting stronger and not doing a single other variable got that down. So especially with the 10-yard times, like you guys have probably noticed, it's pretty much like a 1-to-1 ratio in the beginning you have to work it, obviously you still have to train it, but strength really carries over into the 10-yard. So you can knock time off just by getting stronger, especially for someone that's undertrained. Just run the freaking thing. Like I said, we didn't do any speed work. All we did was like we maybe ran the 40 like once a month, maybe a little bit more, maybe like, once every 2 weeks we ran it. Just getting like tons and tons of reps running it was sufficient, especially as you're doing the strength training. Just kind of go with the conjugate method, like you said, make sure you're still attacking speed. And then other than that, honestly, it's like a really low hanging fruit when you're like just a young high school guy, especially if it's a football guy that doesn't have a background in sprinting. Like you said, Otto, like you can probably, there's like some very minor cues where honestly, like if it's really horrible, you might be able to get 2/10 like in a couple weeks if they're really bad at sprinting, which you sometimes see.
Good answer. Does the haircut make you faster? I don't know. I didn't run today. If you were to see, people love diet questions.
Otto hates diet questions.
They love diet, but people love diet questions for some reason.
I think people get lost in the sauce about the diet, but
yeah,
that's what I said. People are overly concerned with like diet questions. Diet questions? Can you do 50 push-ups? Stop worrying about your diet. Stop.
So
can you do push-ups? No. Can you do 10 pull-ups? No. Eat Oreos for all I care and do push-ups and pull-ups for the next 100 days because you're not even at the level where the specifics of what you're eating are going to affect training. Yeah, eat generally healthy, but you can't do 10 pull-ups. You're worried about the wrong shit, as Coach Troy says.
If you were to cut for aesthetics and want to lose the least amount of strength, what would your macros be? Dude, that depends on how much weight you want to lose and like how heavy you are. Like it's just.
Oh wait, I'll answer that. I've been hating on diet questions. What is it? Repeat the question.
If you were to cut for aesthetics,
just look sick
and want to lose the least amount of strength, what would your macros be? And I believe macros is all dependent on the person. Like, that's how I look at macros. So, like, if you're, like, 250 pounds and you're, like, 50% body fat, then, like, your macros are going to look way different to get look sick and get aesthetic than if you're, like, 200 pounds, 20% body fat and want to get to like 180 at like 12% body fat. Like those macros are going to be so much different.
So one thing that people should understand when they ask us aesthetic questions, none of us are particularly aesthetic. We're not fitness models. Like we have low body fat and muscle mass because we train and we've been athletes our whole life, but we're not in it to like look sick. It's an added benefit. Right? Sometimes you do some curls, get your arms bigger. But that's something to understand. If you're worried about aesthetics, your priorities are, and I guess that's most people. Most people want to look really good. So when they talk about aesthetics, they talk about lower body fat composition, and higher lean muscle mass, right? What's a really good way to lower your body fat? Run, go for a jog. Like if I needed to lose weight to look good and I wanted my abs to come out, I just put my headphones on, go for a jog, keep your protein intake up where it would be if you were strength training. I think the question was about macros and continue to have strength. So low reps, high weight, keep your nervous system strong. You might have to decrease your overall training volume because you're going to be in a caloric deficit, most likely, if you're really into this stuff. And you're going to be eating enough protein that you can maintain your muscle mass and eat less shit.
Drink less. If you're really trying to lose like body fat, like if you're drinking beer all the time, that's not going to like drink less. Or like if you're drinking margaritas or whatever the hell, that's a ton of sugar. Like drink less crap. Like when you're going out drinking, you can go out and have a good time or whatever, but like be careful with what you drink. Like that's gonna stick on you if you drink beer and all the sugary drinks and all that.
Is this question someone of age to drink?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Just pound if you're gonna go out, whiskey.
Yeah. Hard liquor.
Just so you know, Gus is in the office and he just chuckled and shook his head when I said that. But preferably just don't drink if you're really having trouble with your training goals. If you're not, then do whatever you want. But again, this goes back into the hyperfixation on macros. You want to lose body fat, go for a run. It's the same thing with I'm worried about, how much, what I should eat, what type of protein I should eat, but I can't do 3 pull-ups. I'm worried about looking sick. Do you go for jogs? Do you do the even the easier version is walk on the incline treadmill every day, just get the metabolism going in the morning? Have you done that stuff for like a month? No. Like everyone complains about not reaching their goals and they try to dive into the specifics of this one thing. Like, should I take this one supplement? Would that help me with my goals? Again, you can't do 10 pull-ups. So no, I don't think it will. If you're, running 10.5 and you're trying to get to a 10.4 and you've trained everything else, you're strong, you're at your peak, then maybe we're looking at tiny little percentage improvements where it matters. But that, I think sometimes when you get into the higher level athlete training conversations, the stuff that we would find interesting to talk about then is taken like a high school or a college listener, even a young professional that maybe doesn't have as much experience in sports will take that and then think that because we're interested in those topics, that then applies to them. But you're kind of leaving out the unspoken, and this is probably the case in a lot of podcasts. I think it is, because I don't really listen to a ton of them, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, Troy, but you get into the details of that 2% improvement for max effort. We're chasing that huge squat, that huge jump, that sprint PR, that max power clean. But the way you look at those problems, the variables that you're trying to mess around with to get the results are way different than someone who has never done 100 push-ups in one day. Like you got to go back to the basics and start with A, B, C. That's where a lot of your solutions are going to come from. Same thing with diet too. Go back to the friggin', protein, vegetable, carb, like 3 split plate. Just like do that. And don't binge eat, I don't know, crap. I don't know how people eat. You would have a better relationship with other people and how they eat than I do.
This next one I think I'm going to make into a reel because this is a good question to just answer via reel. But it's, best exercises to develop hitting power in tackles. So to increase your power when tackling people. We can converse about that quickly, or I can just make a reel about it. I think this is another high school football kid. Here, how we'll do this. We'll each say one exercise to help increase your power, and then we'll move on from it. I would say in tackling specifically, increasing your power to run through and finish tackles specifically, I would say like heavy box squats would be a good one. I like that. I think that is good.
I'd agree. That would be my first choice. Second choice would be really heavy, high volume shrugs.
Yep. Because
your traps need to be rock solid, especially when you're tackling with your shoulder or your head, however you want to tackle. You need to do heavy, high volume shrugs. Like just blast your traps so you don't have a neck. Or you could just bang your head against a wall. Progressively bang your head harder against a harder surface. That's a joke. Don't actually do that. But yeah, heavy shrugs, lots of reps, make your neck disappear.
Do they still make those jammer machines? You know what I'm talking about?
They do. Like the jammer arms, we actually looked into getting a pair. They're pretty good.
Those are pretty sick.
They attach to racks, and you can.
Yeah, I haven't seen those in a while. That's pretty good power development. A little bit more relevant.
Wait, something on the tackling one.
Yep.
People always want to find an exercise or something to make them better at tackling, and I have some really bad news for you.
Tougher.
Well, it's not being tougher, but I guess it is.
But
it's not. It has nothing to how hard you hit in football and how nasty your tackles are so much less about how strong you are in the weight room or what exercises you're doing that other guy is not, and much more about the mindset of it's going down. It's pure violence. Like, I don't care what happens to my body. I'm making this play. When you get into higher levels, it is about technique and right leverage and tackling form and technique. But everybody knows those guys on the team that are $150, $165 that are just lighting 220-pound running backs up. Like, they're coming down from safety full tilt, lighting them up, stonewalling them. And I promise you, those guys are not doing anything revolutionary training-wise. They're just ballers. So
yeah, they're just dogs.
If you want to hit harder, want to hit harder more. Like, you really need to want to hit hard. If you want to make big hits, friggin' eyes of fire, go hit somebody, because there's not going to be any specific exercise, especially with contact sports. Like, yeah, you can fortify your body to make it so you can withstand more force, but there's no exercise that's going to make you a dog.
Favorite, next one from Coach Dawson Piper. Favorite plyometrics for acceleration. I think ones that we've been doing more of that I think are beneficial is the deep tier plyometric stuff, because in that acceleration, say you're in that 10-yard start, the better range of motion you have and how strong and stiff your tendons are in deep ranges of motion, the better your first step and your forward lean and everything is going to be. I think those are super good. But I'll stick with that. You guys can add. We probably all have similar ideas, but go ahead.
Yeah, squatty plyos, low impact squatty plyos. I like doing the going into a deep lunge and then holding weight and doing plyometrics with it, and then deep tier plyos. That's what I think we started doing that earlier. Like last year, did we start working those in? Everybody liked them. I liked them. I'm a big fan of them. And then I guess
single leg jumps I think have been good.
Yeah. I don't do as many single leg jumps. I don't think I've ever really been a huge single leg plyometric guy. I like repeat broad jumps and a lot of vertical jumps and just really focus. But that's just because that's what I like to do. So I think, again, whatever gets you excited and you find a way to kind of gamify that type of training where you're trying to push harder with some sort of plyometric exercise, whether it's covering ground, max force, or if you're trying to get an overall increase in volume and threshold. Like, I like just playing a song and then doing pogo hops or single leg pogo hops for an extremely long duration and then trying to increase with how much volume I can week by week. I think that's good for acceleration.
Brandon?
Broad jump variants. Triple broad's great. Resisted broad, if you have a partner, or you can even do it, tie a band around a squat rack. Yeah, just broad jump variants. I guess seated box jump's not really a broad jump variant, but that's another good one.
You know, seated box jump a plyometric?
I guess technically by definition it's not.
What I've been seeing recently? There's a ton of people doing it, and it's like new. I haven't seen it before, but like within the last month or so, I've just seen it on a bunch of different people's stories. I'm not really sure where it came from, but it's seated on a box doing a broad jump to another box.
I used to do those all the time. It got popularized by Otto. It's familiar with Blaine McConnell. I feel like who popularized it, and there's now kind of an ecosystem that's kind of formed around. I don't know if it's around him directly, but people adjacent to him. So that's kind of why that's blown up. I used to do those all the time. I don't think they have a ton of utility. I used to do it because it's easy. and this is something we can talk about on another podcast. When you have time constraints for training, I used to do it because it's like you can set it up. You can do it at like a 24-hour fitness, right? It's the easiest way to be like quiet while jumping and not get kicked out of a commercial gym. So when I was like working a lot, like in sales, and I didn't have much time, I used to do a lot of seated broad jumps just because it was like an easy little stimulus before I lifted. But I don't think it's like a crazy efficient exercise. It's just something you can sprinkle in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I just said it to you, Brandon, but one thing that probably a lot of people don't know, plyometrics are not one-off jumps.
Right.
I thought that was
It's
common sense, but there are a lot of things that I think are
yeah.
common sense where someone's like, oh, I'm doing plyometrics and I'm doing like single max effort jumps. Plyometrics are repeated.
Right.
Like you're doing repeat jumps. They have to be fast off the ground. That is the nature of the plyometric exercise. Go read past the second line in Google about plyometrics and understand what they are and how they benefit you, because jumping is not like doing a max effort vertical jump or doing one broad jump is not plyometric training. And I didn't realize that was a misconception, but it might be. And if you think that's the case, I hate to break it to you, but you're incorrect. And those are two different things. So,
yeah, Otto's correct there, and I'm full disclosure, I'm occasionally guilty of it, like I just did with the seated box jump. It's just plyos have become so synonymous with jump training that even sometimes I subconsciously, by definition, it's technically a seated box jump. It's not a plyometric.
I know you knew it was more for.
Yeah, it's just they've become so
listening.
synonymous. It's like I forget sometimes.
I use them synonymously
on
too.
the topic of plyometrics, another question we have here is best plyometric workouts for offensive linemen, and I think it is the deep tier, low impact plyos, and then also the deep tier plyos that squatty plyos, deep lunge plyos. And what we've been doing, what we did on Saturday, we saw was super hard for some of the offensive linemen, is that single leg, like lateral bound jumps and like sticking and holding it.
I got a question for you guys. You guys train a lot. You guys
Can
train
I answer
linemen.
this question first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Low impact plyometrics. Low impact plyometrics. Low impact plyometrics. That means landing softly and doing it continuously. Put on your favorite song and just go. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, increase the overall time. I remember even just when Chase came back from school, he had ankle issues. We had him doing low impact plyos. Anyone that's had tendon or knee issues, I think we've said it before on another podcast, and when I say low impact plyometrics, low impact does not mean you're not working. It means that there's not a lot of impact on your joints. Linemen are typically heavier, bigger. They're not super springy or twitchy. Some are, and that's awesome for them. But you need to be very careful about joints. So low impact plyos and just practice shifting your weight and bouncing back and forth, not to the point where there's loud impact, but nice and soft and just going back and forth. Put a song on. It doesn't have to be complicated. Switch between single leg, do 2 legs, do single leg, do deep tier, do what would be the opposite of deep tier? Regular plyos, like jump rope. Be really soft, squishy, continuous plyometrics. Monitor your volume and then increase your volume over time. And that's the best workout, especially for big guys. For plyometrics, your feet are going to burn, your calves are going to burn, your knees are going to hurt. And if you do that well and not too aggressively over time, it's going to make a really, really big difference in the longevity of your career and your lower legs. Brandon, you had a question?
Yeah, that has been a... Oh.
No, go ahead, Troy. I'll go right after you.
No, I was just going to say, those have been a godsend for Chase. He's 300 pounds and squats almost 700 pounds. Like, his knees are going to bug him. He does the low-impact plyos, and when he goes over to do the hurdle hops, he's, like, floating over the hurdles. And, like, it's helped him so much in that. And, like, it's helped him with his 10-yard and his excels and stuff because his joints move better. They feel better, and they're stiffer and stronger. Like, he ran a 159 10 XL at like 300 pounds last week.
Coach got out again, but he was talking about how much
those are huge for linemen.
Yes, you cut out there a little bit, but
we'll fix that later.
Yeah, that's fine. Brandon, edit it out.
Yeah. My question, because you guys work with a lot more bigs. Troy kind of just indirectly, I think, answered this. I've noticed that you guys do go with some more aggressive plyos with them at times, like hurdle hops or like a standing triple. How do you guys usually progress into that, especially when they're probably a little bit more undertrained in that department and you're looking at guys that are 285 to 300 pounds?
Just like he said, start with deep tier plyos. It usually builds up, starts in the weight room, and then you're ready to roll on the field.
Right.
And then it's also managing volume too. So sometimes it would just be, I think when we start, it's like once or twice through the hurdles, rest, chill out. I can do more. Don't. And then it seems like it's fed on itself, where it's just when guys do it, they realize how much better with those low impact plyos their joints feel, and that they can actually handle it, where previously it's almost like babying heavier players, where it's like, oh, you got to take care of your joints, you can't do that stuff, instead of looking at the issue and saying, you can't do it right now, what can we do additionally in your training and prep work so that you can do that? And I mean, it's also skill. I think that skill should do. I think everyone, even on off days or training days, you should get a lot of reps in those repeat plyometric movements, even if it's not high intensity or high impact. But you just need to move around. You need to get a ton of reps in those movements, because it's hard to get the same amount of reps when you're doing max intensity, right? For your feet, calves, knees, lower leg, you can't replicate that, so it's better to just kind of tone it down. Same way if you're doing a volume bench, you're not going to do a max effort bench and continue to do that for sets of 10 with the same weight. You can't do that, so you have to go lighter and get more volume in it. So yeah,
we'll go through a few more questions here, like 3 or 4 more.
I'm done. No, we can go through for 3 or 4
What
more.
workout should I be starting if I want to play on the defensive line? All of them. It looks like a young kid who asked. I can't see the profile. It just looks like a young football player. Literally just lift weights and get stronger. Do all of the exercises. Like, get stronger.
Push-ups, pull-ups.
Yeah, push-ups, pull-ups, squat, RDL, bench. Just literally just get stronger. Thoughts on barbell step-ups?
Good. It's a single leg movement. You can load it up pretty heavy. It can get a little bit dangerous if it's not super stable, but yeah, sure. I think we did them when I was in college. We did a lot of dumbbell step-ups that I liked, but barbell, sure, you can. There's a little bit added element of danger because of like balance, so like you can fall and crazy shit can happen. But
I just remember there was a viral video of Christian McCaffrey training, and then it was doing like really heavy step-ups, and after that everyone's just been like, step-ups amazing. I'm like, why?
Yeah, I mean,
why? Because Christian McCaffrey's doing it? Like,
do a reverse lunge, like whatever.
Step-ups are kind of a meme. You can blame, I think, the track and field world for that, especially the McCaffrey video with Brian Kula is like a big, really obviously integrates a lot of the track and field training. Track and field athletes like love loading like 700 pounds onto like a step up and going like 1 inch. It's like that is the compound lift of like Olympic jumpers. It's like the 800-pound like 1 inch range of motion step up. It's a fine exercise. I don't think there's anything crazy about step ups. Has its place.
Thoughts on standing strict press, and is it in your program? I like a good barbell overhead press. I think it's fine. It's good upper body. You can use it as a compound movement instead of like supplement it. Like maybe you're getting tired of bench or your bench is plateauing. Go over, hit some barbell overhead press. Like it's going to build up your shoulders and everything, and build up your upper chest. I think it's a good movement. It's not in my program per se right now, but I do them. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, do your push-ups. I mean, I think if they're doing a strict overhead press, it better not be 95 pounds, because I promise you that person is not doing enough push-ups. But overall, yeah, it's a good movement. I like it.
Yeah, everything Troy said. I add it in now and then. It's a great lift.
All right, we'll go last one here. YouTube fitness guy. I don't want to say this because I think it's going to be taking Otto's, so I won't say it.
Say it.
Athlean X. He's a legend. He's been watching his videos for 15 years.
YouTube fitness, YouTube guy person. We don't have a lot of videos, but go subscribe to Gud Performance. I don't know. YouTube's good. I find that
I said Athlean X because that's like when I was like growing up or like whatever over the years, like we watched a ton of Athlean X videos. Like he was just like, he had good information. Like,
yeah.
You know,
I think that everybody has a few things that they do really, really well, and there's very few YouTube channels that get everything right. There's usually a couple really good tidbits, but I would use YouTube less so as I watch all the videos on this specific channel, and more so when you're looking for something, see if there's a really good video on what you're trying to learn. Because sometimes I found the most obscure information on YouTube channels with only a couple, 100 subscribers, maybe even less. And the person who made that video gave a way better explanation and better insight than someone with millions of followers. So I would just look for what you're trying to understand rather than just go on a single YouTube video and be like, I want to learn all this stuff, because that would
Rich
be my
Piana.
advice. He's got some valid stuff too, you know?
Dude,
Like,
Rich
there's
Piana
some
messed
stuff.
me up though. Like, there's a video one time when I was really starting to first get into lifting. He's like, "There's no such thing as overtraining. There's only like undersleeping and undereating," which is kind of like somewhat true. But like, I took it to heart,
maybe,
and I was like,
maybe when it was. He was on copious amounts of steroids and growth hormone, so like, yeah, he's always going to be ready to train.
Right. I kind of took it to heart as like a 15-year-old, and I was like, "Oh, I can just lift to failure every day. Like, nothing's gonna happen." And you can low key do that as a teenager because your hormones are like so insane, and like I was so weak to begin with. But it kind of did mess me up for a little bit once I started plateauing.
Yeah, I think that's all the Q&A. 55 minutes. Good.
Yeah.
If you have more questions, send them in. We'll try and we'll do more of these Q&A podcasts, because you guys always flood me with questions on Instagram, so I don't always answer them on Instagram. This is a way easier way for all of us to answer these questions and give you our insight.
Do more push-ups. Do more push-ups. I'm regressing back to just telling people to do more push-ups and run more, because it's becoming increasingly evident, more clear, more apparent to me, however you want to phrase it, that people are diving into this high-level world of fitness and not understanding the basics of fitness. I mean, Rainer talked about it on the other podcast, about a basic fundamental understanding of strength and conditioning. But if you haven't gotten to the point where you can kind of bang out 100 push-ups in a day, you don't need to be worrying about how you're breaking up.
If you're an athlete, if you're a person, you should be able to do 100 push-ups in a day, throughout the course of a day. You need to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, and if you can't, start, but that's a really good goal to start with. And you don't need to be worrying about your splits, what exercises you're doing, if you're doing strict overhead press or not. You just need general reps doing a movement. I start with push-ups because it's probably the easiest one to get better at. Even if you can't do a single push-up, you can regress it, modify it, and just be consistent with it. And you'll probably learn more from just building yourself up to being able to do 100 push-ups in a day than you would be from consuming all of the YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, posts in the entire internet about strength training. So just start there. And even if you think you're at a really high level of training, I would still challenge you maybe on a weekend or some day to just hit it additionally, because it teaches you how to break up sets, progress. There's a lot to it, and it's really simple, and you need to not worry about the specifics of your diet and your periodization and the way your splits and overtraining and this muscle and that muscle. You need to really just get it done, get good. So yeah, there you go.
Don.